This is a production of PBS Charlotte.
The following episode of Charlotte Cooks is brought to you by Central Piedmont Community College and viewers like you. Thank you.
Coming up on this episode of Charlotte Cooks, we're on fire. Tune in, see what we're up to. Hello there, and welcome to this episode of Charlotte Cooks. Today joining me is Chef Ashley Boyd from 300 East. And Ashley, what are we going to make today?
We're going to make some butternut squash cheesecake, marbled into a white chocolate cheesecake base. So it's a marbled butternut squash and white chocolate cheesecake.
That sounds amazing. So in order to get this cheesecake in the oven, what do we have to do?
So first we're going to get a ganache going. Ganache is basically just chocolate and cream.
Okay.
We've got a very low heat under a pan of water.
Okay.
With a tight fitting bowl set on top of it. So this is something most people would have in their kitchen. You don't have to own a double boiler.
You don't have to do anything special, just a bowl that fits,
right.
Water underneath, turn it on, and then it's going to easily and very gently melt that chocolate. Do you stir that in?
I will just sort of let it heat gently, and
Okay.
I'll give it a stir occasionally.
Okay.
I'll probably turn the heat off before all of the chocolate is melted.
Okay.
And just stir it together at
Okay.
that point.
All right. So now that's what we're going to stir into our cheesecake base, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what do we use for a cheesecake base? How are we going to make that? Because I don't have a clue how to make a cheesecake.
Okay. Well,
Really, I don't.
I can tell you all about cheesecake. It's one of my
Okay.
favorite subjects.
All right. Good.
So we're going to start with cream cheese. It needs to be room temperature throughout, evenly softened. So that takes a few hours. It helps if you cut your cream cheese into smaller pieces, evenly
Okay.
sized pieces, and just leave them on a plate
Okay.
in your kitchen for, I would say, 2 hours.
Now, I know from my experience with working with cream cheese, the reason we keep the cream cheese at room temperature is because then it gets smooth, right? Because if it's cold at all, it's going to have little lumps left in it. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So what do we do next?
So next we're going to
Okay.
come over to the mixer.
And when you're doing this mixer, you're going to want to use a paddle instead of a whip. Is that right?
That's correct.
And why would you do that?
The whip's going to incorporate too much air.
And we don't want an airy cheesecake, do we?
No, we don't. So what happens if you incorporate too much air is it will souffle in the oven, and then it'll fall and crack.
And so souffle, when you say souffle in the oven, that means it's going to rise up and you're going to go, oh, look, it's so big. But when you take it out, it's going to fall down and collapse. And like you said, it's going to get a crack in it.
That's
so
right.
That's one thing you don't want to do.
So the first step in starting the batter is to get the cream cheese, your softened cream cheese, going. And I do mine at medium speed for 3 minutes
Okay.
until it's completely incorporated, no lumps, completely smooth. About halfway through that, I'm going to scrape the bowl down with a spatula.
That's really important to do whenever you're using a mixer, isn't it? Because then it keeps stuff from getting stuck to the sides and off the bottom so that you're always getting it well mixed. And remember, always stir your stuff with a mixer.
You're going to see me do that a bunch of times. Scrape the bowl, scrape the beater.
Okay.
Over and over and over again. That's the most important step in mixing the cheesecake, is
Okay.
making sure that everything is incorporated evenly. And the sole reason is because it's so easy for the cheese to form lumps in there.
Yeah.
So it's been about a minute and a half. I'm going to scrape everything down.
It looks good already.
It does. So this is the only time that I'm going to have the cheesecake mixture on any speed other than low speed.
And that's just in your initial mix to get that cheese soft and well
Yes.
combined,
Correct.
ready to absorb all the other lovely things we're going to put in it.
So after the 3-minute creaming of the cream cheese, we're going to turn the speed down to low. So we're going to give it another minute and a half on medium speed.
Okay. Now while you're mixing this, we should get our oven ready, right?
Yes.
So what temperature do we bake this at in the oven?
I bake mine at 300.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get the oven turned on, okay? Okay, so there's something else you have to do in order to get this ready to go, right? To put in the oven. So what else is it you have to do? It's not just taking it and put it in the oven like a regular cake, is it?
It's not. So first of all, you want to insulate the cheesecake batter, which is more of a custard than a cake batter, from the heat of the oven so that it bakes evenly, it solidifies in the center before the edges burnt. So to do that, you use a water bath. And a water bath is just a larger pan that will fit your cheesecake pan down into it, and you fill it about 2/3 of the way up with hot water right before you slide it in the oven.
Right, and that hot water, and it's important that that water be hot so that it really helps the heat evenly cook that cheesecake, because if it's not hot, all the energy in the oven goes to heating up the water rather than into heating up and cooking your cheesecake. But we'll show you how all that works, and that should be about 1.5 minutes now.
I think so. So I'm going to scrape it down again.
Oh, you can see how nice and soft that is.
Yeah, it's nice and smooth. I don't really see any lumps, but cheesecake is tricky. We may not see any lumps now, but if you don't follow careful mixing, they will appear, believe me. And then once they're there, it is really difficult to get them out.
It is. So now you're going to start adding your other ingredients. Now, what other
I am.
ingredients are you using?
So this is 2 pounds of cream cheese for
Okay.
1 cheesecake. We have 6 ounces of regular white sugar and 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. I will just mix these together to make sure that they're incorporated before I add them in. Because at this point, I'm not going to turn the mixer up on high. I'm just going to gently, slowly mix everything together.
And mixing your cornstarch with your sugar really helps make sure that that cornstarch gets evenly distributed instead of just lumping in one area. So mixing it with that, and you know, it's the same if you mix flour with that. You can do the same with your flour. It just makes it go evenly throughout the mixture.
Incorporating the dry ingredients before they go into a batter is definitely
Important.
cloud of cornstarch there. So from this point on, we're just going to use a low speed. The next step in getting a nice smooth cheesecake batter is to add the eggs one at a time.
Okay, one at a time. Remember, at this point, now that we started adding the other ingredients, we're only going to do this on low. We're not turning it up high.
I think we can probably turn the ganache off
Okay,
now.
I'll turn
and
that off.
we could give it a stir.
Alrighty, do you have an extra spatula there? All right, oh yeah. Now see, I'm just going to stir this.
And if it's warm enough to incorporate, we can just pull the bowl off of the pan. So if you do not thoroughly incorporate the small amounts of liquid egg one at a time, you will have lumps appear that you didn't know were there.
It's a good tip. It's a really good tip.
And they're extremely annoying to try to get out once the batter's made. Okay, so first egg's in. Second egg.
And we're using a total of 4 eggs, is that it?
Yes, 4
Okay.
eggs. Time to scrape again.
Ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at it. Yeah, it's a rich looking batter. Look at that.
It is. It's nice and smooth and glossy, and when we add the ganache, it's going to be even more so.
Okay.
White chocolate is a great ingredient. I am not a huge fan of just eating it straight or even
Yeah.
having things dipped in it. It doesn't do anything for me. But as far as adding texture and mouthfeel to certain things like cheesecake and like a little bit of tanginess, it's such a great ingredient. It's also a good emulsifier. So sometimes if a recipe is broken,
Oh,
you
really?
can add a little white chocolate and it will bring
That's
it back
really
together.
interesting to know. I've never been a real fan of white chocolate because I would really rather have dark chocolate. But it's nice to know that it has other capabilities other than just being something you dip in and make Easter eggs out of, you know?
Yeah. So
I always
here we go.
associate white chocolate with Easter.
Yeah, it can be kind of insipid and just like way too sweet.
Very sweet.
Yeah. So the third egg is in.
Okay.
Okay, we're almost there.
Ooh, look at that batter. Yummy.
It's really yellow because of the eggs that we use.
The more, I want to say, not necessarily free range, but you know, like I like to buy my eggs from farmers and people that raise their own chickens and things like that. And I always find that those egg yolks are really rich and dark yellow.
They are.
And they're gorgeous. And then the commercial eggs, the ones that are produced in the grocery store, they're not produced in the grocery store, but the commercial eggs that have the thin white shells on them and their yolks are usually paler. They still do the same job, but I really like those really rich yolks, don't you?
I do too. Okay, so all of the eggs are incorporated. And at this point, if you wanted to add any kind of flavoring, it depends on what kind of cheesecake you're wanting to make. But if you were making a cheesecake with like a nut in it, you could add almond extract or black walnut extract or something like that. Or you could just add vanilla. The white chocolate in this has a really nice vanilla flavor, so I'm not adding the extra vanilla because it's really expensive.
Yeah.
So if I've got the flavor in there already, then I'm not
So
gonna add
this
more.
is a very basic cheesecake batter, and from here you can add whatever flavors you want.
Correct.
Whether it's apple cinnamon to, and we're going to use butternut squash today.
Yep.
And that's what we're going to talk about next, right? Your butternut squash?
Well, let's add the ganache,
Okay.
and then we'll talk about the squash. This cheesecake batter, I've taken a little bit of the sugar out of it because of the white chocolate. So the white chocolate's very sweet, and we'll add that to the cheesecake batter. So I've taken the sugar down by about a quarter,
Okay.
just so it's not too overwhelmingly
That makes
sweet.
a lot of sense, because I find sometimes when recipes go together, they're not necessarily thinking about the sweetness or the saltiness of some of the ingredients that you add, and they add salt or they add sugar, and then it's too sweet or too salty. And so that's nice to know that you reduce the sugar in that because of the sweetness in that chocolate. It's really kind of nice too when you're using something like your butternut squash party night. I love pumpkin cheesecake, and I like that you're doing a butternut squash cheesecake because it doesn't always have to be pumpkin, right?
It doesn't. I mean, it's so similar, but there are so many great varieties of squash out there
There are.
that we can get locally or at the grocery store.
Yes.
And you really can use most of them. You can use acorn squash or kabocha squash.
Those are
or
wonderful, yeah.
Butternut or pumpkin.
Yeah.
You know, it really kind
They're
of
all
is
in the
all
squash
same
family, aren't they?
deal. The pumpkin can be a little more watery too if you're doing it homemade, if you're roasting in the oven. Whereas when we roast a squash, it's firmer and there's not as much water to deal with, and
Right.
that helps. You don't really want to add water.
Right.
To
no.
your batter.
No, you don't.
So I've got the white chocolate ganache in, and this is the very last time that I'm going to scrape the bowl, just making sure that I don't have any plain cheesecake batter on the bottom. What we're going to do now is we're going to make our butternut batter. I have a roasted butternut squash. So for this, it was really, really easy. I just took a whole butternut squash, I split it in half down the middle, scooped the seeds out, and then just put it on an oiled baking pan.
And put it in the oven until
400
it was...
degrees until it was sort of soft and collapsing. Scoop that flesh out, put it in the food processor, and then I mix it with some things. I put an egg in there.
Okay.
I put lots of spices in there
Okay.
because this little bit of puree is going to provide the pumpkin spice flavor,
Right.
the butternut squash
Right.
spice flavor for the whole cheesecake.
Come tell us about the spices that we've got here, Ashley.
So-
We've got nutmeg and cinnamon.
Nutmeg, freshly grated, is the best. It's far superior. Cinnamon, cloves, or allspice, and ginger.
Okay.
Then we've
and
got-
then we've got vanilla and a little bit of salt,
salt.
sugar, and then, you can buy the butternut squash already cubed up in the grocery store nowadays, and you can just throw it on a sheet pan and get it in there.
We have two batters that are going in this pan.
Okay.
We have one white chocolate batter,
Okay.
then we have a butternut squash batter.
Okay.
So this is about a cup of the puree mixture,
Okay.
and we're kind of going to just eyeball it, but we're going to try to mix 2 to 1. So we're going to put in about 2 cups of our white chocolate batter,
Okay.
and then we're going to blend that together.
So you wouldn't necessarily do that in a mixer, just with your spatula is all you
You can
need?
just do it with a spatula.
Does it need to be smooth and well incorporated like this is?
It does.
Okay.
So you want to kind of bring that squash puree to more of a cheesecake batter consistency. Just take your time. This isn't like the cheesecake batter. The lumps in the squash puree will come out.
And you're going to talk to us about crust too, because
I
we do
am.
crustless cheesecakes and crusted cheesecakes. So you're going to tell us when we're ready to pan this up, your preference and why.
Actually, let's talk about that now,
Okay.
because if you wanted to do a cheesecake with a crust on the bottom, now's the time. Crust is something that most bakers would do in the pan with the cheesecake. At the restaurant, we don't do our crust in the pan.
And why is that?
Well, for one, I really hate it when crust under cheesecake gets at all like soggy.
And that happens a lot.
It does.
It happens a lot.
So, and especially, you know, the way it's baked in a water bath and then it sits under that really moist cheesecake batter, it'll happen really quickly. And, you know, we can't make cheesecake every single day.
Right.
It has to sit for a few days.
Right.
So the end result of that is that after a few days, that crust isn't as crispy as it was before.
Okay.
So what we do is we'll make the crust, we'll make a cookie, and this is a ginger molasses cookie
Okay.
that happens to be gluten-free. We'll just bake those and then we'll crumble them up.
Nice.
And then we use that on the plate with the cheesecake.
Okay, so you're getting a crust. It's just not under the cheesecake. And it's not going to be soggy. It's going to be a crispy, spicy, delicious little combination.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
For a crust for cheesecake, you can go so many different directions. So for this one with the butternut squash and the spice, the sort of pumpkin spice profile, I would go with a ginger snap or a molasses cookie.
That
And
makes
that
sense.
can be store-bought, no problem.
Okay.
You can crush it up in a food processor or just in a plastic bag with a rolling pin.
Right.
And then you just mix it with enough, you drizzle in melted butter until you can pick up a handful of it and squeeze it, and it'll hold its shape in your hand. It'll
Okay.
stay in a ball.
All right.
Um,
So that's if you're putting it in the bottom of your pan, right?
Correct.
But if you're putting it on the side of the plate like you're going to, you don't need to add
Just
that
crush
extra
your
butter,
cookies
do
up.
you? Okay. All right. So we can use that as a sprinkle.
right.
Okay. Great.
So if you did your crust that way, you would then take that cookie and butter mixture. Sometimes you would add extra sugar depending on if it's graham crackers, maybe a little extra sugar.
Sure.
And then you just press that into your prepared pan as firmly as you can. We're ready to pan up our cheesecake.
Okay.
Again, we're doing it without the crust.
This is a 10-inch by 2-inch, but 9-inch
That's a 10
pans.
inch, yeah.
It depends on what size you want to make. It doesn't matter. It's just going to take longer to cook if they're smaller and deeper. But something like this is what she's talking about, regular old cake pan. Okay.
So we will need pan spray,
Okay.
or pan
Like-
coating they
There you
call
go.
it in the restaurant. Yeah.
Yep. There you go. Vegetable spray. There you go.
So we're just going to spray lightly, and then we're going to use my very best friend in the whole world, parchment paper.
There you go.
This is great because you don't have to worry about your cake or bread or whatever you're baking sticking to the bottom of your pan. It's just going to come right out. So I'm going to just press that in there, contact with the pan spray, and then we're going to do another little bit of spray just
And
around
that's
the sides.
just to keep it from sticking to the pan, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So now I'm going to take this out because I don't want
Sure.
it floating around.
Sure.
Okay, so I am going to put our white chocolate batter in first.
That looks so delicious. Even it looks raw, but it looks great. It looks fantastic. And smelling all those wonderful spices that you incorporated into that butternut squash.
It is a beautiful thing. So now what I'm going to do is just sort of drop blobs of the butternut batter sort of randomly onto the cheesecake. And then we're just going to use the spatula to kind of swirl it around a little bit.
So we're going to work all of that batter in there, right?
I think we are.
Okay.
So with every
So you
bite
put a layer
get-
on top, swirl it in, another layer, swirl it in.
So then I'm just going to kind of tap it just to even it out a little bit.
So now a water bath, we're going to use a larger pan with some hot water in it. And then we're going to put the pan in there and put that in the oven, right?
Right,
All right. 300 degrees, right?
300 degrees.
300 degrees.
That's my temperature of choice.
There we go.
Some recommend baking it lower,
Right.
but I don't have that kind of oven space and time.
Right.
So
right,
I speed it up a
right.
little bit, and it seems to work out okay.
And so I'm going to get that door for you. How long is that going to take to cook?
So this is going to take around an hour and a half.
An hour and a half.
Yeah.
Okay.
At
And do you need to
300.
check it? There we
I
go.
will check it after 45 minutes.
Okay.
Um,
And how do you check it? With a toothpick?
well, I try not to stick things
Because
in
it shows.
there. It'll show,
Yeah.
and you could develop a crack in your cheesecake from doing
Ah,
that.
good idea,
So
yeah.
I know it's not going to be done after 45 minutes. At that point, I just sort of look at it, see how it's going, make sure that it's not getting any hot or burning spots, and always rotate it,
Okay. So rotating, you just mean by turning it
turning it all the way around.
all the way around. Okay. So we have one already done. And when you take it out of the oven, we have to cool it down all of the way. So you're going to leave it on your counter till it gets coolish, but then you're going to put it in the refrigerator to cool it completely. How would you get that out of that pan?
So it's not too complicated. Obviously, with a spring form, as long as you haven't had water leak into your pan, it's just a matter of popping that outside ring off. And
Right.
and then you have
But
it.
this one, we don't have that outside ring.
Correct.
We don't have something, so this is where our,
This is where we
Fire
get to
tool
use,
comes
This is where we
in.
get to play with fire.
right, I'm just gonna let you have this. Okay, so what do you've got there? You've got what?
So I have a cardboard round that's
Mm-hmm.
the same size as my pan, and you can get these at any store that sells cake decorating
Mm-hmm.
supplies. But just make sure it's the size of your pan. So I have a 9-inch pan, and it's the 9-inch cardboard round.
Okay.
I've covered it with plastic wrap to make sure that it doesn't stick to the cheesecake, and I'm gonna put that there. Just flip it over, and then we're gonna use this torch. It's okay if you don't have a torch at home. So I'm just warming the bottom of the pan and then warming the sides of the pan. I don't want them to get hot. I'm just basically melting the pan spray.
And that's gonna help that whole cake release, right?
It is. So with the torch, it could take a couple of tries. So I'm just gonna, obviously you don't want to have got this too hot. Feel it before you put your hands on it. I'm gonna lift up the pan and the cardboard round, and I'm just gonna gently tap the sides of the pan a few times, holding the cardboard round on the bottom. I'm gonna give it a shake. There we go. Okay.
Ta-da!
So then we need to turn it over. So you can take your serving plate,
Okay.
or you can take another cardboard round.
Okay, do you want another cardboard round?
Sure.
Do you want it with parchment on it?
No, that's okay.
Just plain? Okay, there you go.
I've left the parchment on here because it helps me get the slices off when I cut it. Flip it over. Gently pull away your...
Look how beautiful it is. Oh, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. Oh my gosh, look at that cake. Look at that. You can see where she marbled it in. Oh, it's beautiful. Boy, I wish you guys could smell this. But you're gonna make it at home, so you're gonna taste it, right? So now we're gonna cut this cheesecake. So what do we need to cut the cheesecake?
We need a long, thin bladed knife.
Like this? Okay,
And-
there you go.
Big chef's knife is ideal,
Okay.
or a slicer, but most people
Okay.
don't have those at home. And then we need hot water.
Okay, so we got a pitcher of hot water, long
of
enough
hot
to
water.
put your knife blade in. That's
Yes.
the key point right there, isn't it?
Absolutely. So we're going to let that get nice and warm from the water. Wipe it off with a clean towel. And then I'm going to just cut all the way across the cheesecake. And the warm water on the knife helps it cut through smoothly and then not bring a whole lot of cheesecake back up.
Right. So you don't get any debris lips.
Right. Yeah, those don't look good. I'm going to cut this one in 12.
Okay. How many do you normally get out of that size cake?
Well, in the restaurant, we like to have a nice, generous portion. So we do 12 from a 9-inch
Okay.
cheesecake, which is not enormous, but it's definitely big enough. If you were serving a 9-inch cheesecake at home, I would say you could get up to 20 slices, especially if you were doing it as part of a dessert buffet or something like that, like at Thanksgiving.
Right. Because people usually just take bites of things. That kind
Small
of thing.
portions of multiple
Right.
desserts.
Because they want to have everything.
Right. So I have 3 slices cut out. So I divide it in 4 and then do 3 slices from each quarter.
Okay.
And
That way you
then-
get the even 12 and all the pieces are the same.
And they even sell nifty cake markers that you can just sort of mark the top of the cheesecake with if you're not good at
Oh, that's kinda
eyeballing
fun.
things. So I'm going to get my bowl.
There you go.
Thank you. And then I'm going to try to get this spatula between the parchment and the cheesecake, but it's not going to happen. So I'm putting my hand under the parchment paper just to help me pop that slice of cheesecake out. There we go.
Oh, look at that. Oh, that's beautiful.
I'm going to use our cookie crust. This is the ginger molasses cookie to sort of decorate.
This looks delicious.
Don't want to be skimpy with it because you need that crunch and texture in there. I think whipped cream always goes with anything pumpkin-y or spicy or cheesecake in general.
Any dessert, actually.
And then for a little extra crunch and texture, we love to use tuiles and lace cookies and things like that in the restaurant. And then just to top it off, I'm gonna add a little color with some edible flowers.
There's a lot of flowers you can eat, and the flowers added to this it's a beautiful addition. Very elegant. There we go. Oh my goodness. That's gorgeous. All right, y'all. Look at this. Butternut squash cheesecake. This is an amazing dish. And you saw it's a white chocolate cheesecake with butternut squash puree mixed into part of the batter. You guys, it's a matter of taking your time and making this and letting it cook for a while. I hope you try this recipe at home because it doesn't seem to be that complicated, and it just is a matter of being very, very patient with it. You can grab our recipes off of our website at pbscharlotte.org, or you can email me at Pamela, Pamela.roberts, ROBERTS, @cpcc.edu, and I'll be happy to send you a copy. But Ashley, thank you for being here because this is fantastic. I love this. So y'all, go make your cheesecake. So thank you for watching this episode of Charlotte Cooks, and we'll catch you next time.
A production of PBS Charlotte.